If it declared independence from Russia, it would instantly become the largest country on Earth. About a third of this vast wilderness is dominated by the taiga, a colossal forest about 1.5 times the size of India. And it was deep in the heart of this endless sea of trees that one of the most mysterious natural disasters in modern history took place, just over 100 years ago. On the 30th of June 1908, a huge section of the East Siberian taiga was leveled by something. The sheer scale of devastation was breathtaking. 80 million trees across almost 1,000 square miles were felled in what can only be described as a pocket-sized apocalypse. It looked as though someone had dropped a nuclear bomb in the middle of the Siberian wilderness. Except nuclear weapons wouldn't be invented for another 40 years, and no human explosive in existence at the time could have caused anywhere near that level of destruction. So, if it wasn't a WMD that leveled 1,000 square miles of Siberian forest over a century ago, what on earth was it? In 1927, Russian mineralogist Leonid Kulik ventured to the remote site, near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River, armed with a team of scientists, a handful of local guides, and a theory. Kulik believed only one thing could possibly explain this remarkable Russian ruination: a meteor strike. To begin with, his investigation supported that hypothesis. The fallen trees all pointed in the same direction, and by following them, the team reached what was clearly some kind of ground zero. But it was there that Kulik found something that simply didn't make sense. Or, to be precise, what he didn't find made no sense. There was no impact crater, nor was there a meteorite, not even fragments. Even stranger, where the crater should have been, the trees were still standing upright, but were bereft of bark and branches. It was bloody bizarre, and serious questions remain even today. This is the story of the Tunguska event, a mystery that has stumped science for more than 100 years. Whatever it was that flattened 1,000 square miles of forest in Siberia in 1908, its effects reverberated around the world for several days afterwards. Seismic stations across Europe and Asia registered an activity spike resembling a mid-sized earthquake, and an air-based shockwave was detected 5,000 miles away in Papua New Guinea and Washington, D.C. You didn't even need sensitive scientific equipment to see that something strange was going on. Night skies across half the world were illuminated by an eerie light for days. This odd luminescence was so bright people could take photos and read newspapers outside in the middle of the night. Eyewitness accounts from near ground zero are sparse because, well, Siberia is sparse. It's one of the least densely populated places on Earth. Hence, 1,000 square miles of forest were obliterated, yet the estimated death toll stands at a whopping 3. Not 3,000, not 300, just 3. Those who were unlucky enough to be nearby at the time all tell a similar tale. In the early hours of the morning of the 30th of June 1908, a strange blue-white light appeared high up in the sky, so bright it looked like a second sun. This light slowly moved towards the horizon over the course of 10 minutes or so, at which point the sky suddenly filled with flames. Shortly afterwards came a series of loud bangs that sounded like artillery fire, and a searingly hot shockwave demolished buildings, blew out windows, and threw people off their feet, knocking many unconscious. A plausible explanation for such wanton destruction has eluded scientists for decades. The site is incredibly remote, which has seriously hampered investigations, and what we have found barely even makes sense. The lack of an impact crater meant a meteor strike was out. There aren't volcanoes in the area, and whilst earthquakes can knock down trees, they don't generate airborne shockwaves or bright lights in the sky. With the obvious explanations not fitting the evidence, people sought more extreme alternatives. The general belief amongst the locals at the time was that the carnage was caused by an angry god called Ogdi. Others blamed the appearance of a rogue primordial black hole, or the annihilation of a particle of antimatter. Especially excitable types with a penchant for wearing tinfoil have linked the event to an accident involving Nikola Tesla's famed death ray, or even the detonation of a nuclear-powered alien spacecraft. For obvious reasons, none of these theories have ever gained traction within serious scientific circles. But if we've ruled out all of the obvious explanations, and plenty of really fucking stupid ones, what's left? If you think you've figured it out, now would be the time to pause the video and smugly put your idea in the comments. For everyone else, I think it's time for a clue. One that comes from the most unexpected of places. An obscure Australian explosives test, codenamed Operation Blowdown. This unusual experiment was carried out in a remote corner of northern Queensland in 1963. Its purpose was to see what happens when you detonate a really big bomb in the middle of the jungle. Rumour has it the whole thing was a covert feasibility test for dropping nukes on Vietnam, though for obvious reasons, that's never been confirmed. In the experiment, 45 tons of TNT was detonated 20 meters above the rainforest canopy. The subsequent explosion flattened the forest for several hundred meters in every direction, except for one. Directly beneath the bomb, the trees still stood, their limbs and bark seared away. It was Tunguska in miniature. But wait a second, haven't we already established that no bomb in existence in 1908 could possibly have caused a Tunguska event? Well, yes we have. But it wasn't a bomb that exploded over Siberia 100 years ago. It was a meteor. As you probably already know, most meteorites headed our way burn up in the atmosphere long before they reach the surface. That's what shooting stars are. Only an estimated 5 to 10% actually make it to the ground. But it turns out meteorites don't have to smash into terra firma to wreak havoc, because under the right circumstances, the immense heat generated during a meteorite's fall to Earth will cause it to blow itself to pieces, releasing vast amounts of energy in an instant. Anything or anyone unlucky enough to be directly underneath at the time is going to have a very, very bad day. These misanthropic meteorites are known as airbursts, and it's widely believed that one was behind the Tunguska event. According to computer models, the meteorite, which was about 60 meters across and traveling at a face-melting 60,000 miles an hour, detonated 5 miles above Earth's surface, with an explosive force equal to 2,000 little boys. That's the name of the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. I haven't been blowing up children. If those numbers are correct, Tunguska comfortably holds the record as the biggest meteorite event in recorded history. And a large meteor airburst certainly seems to fit the available evidence. It would explain the appearance of the second sun-like light in the sky, and the burst part accounts for the shockwave. Even the eerie lights that lit up the night sky make sense. They would have been caused by sunlight reflecting off dust particles shed by the meteor as it sped through the upper atmosphere. And in the 90s, Italian researchers found large quantities of nickel, cobalt, and chromium in resin extracted from nearby trees, which are rather out-of-place elements in those parts. They are, however, found in high levels in most meteorites. For these reasons and others, the airburst theory is by far the most popular explanation today. But not everybody is entirely convinced. In 2002, a German astrophysicist, Wolfgang Kundt that is, proposed a radically different possibility. That the disaster was caused by the biggest, deadliest fart in history. A fart not of human origin, but straight from the bowels of the Earth itself. According to Mr. Kundt, the destruction of Tunguska was the result of the ignition of 10 million tons of natural gas, released from within the Earth's crust. As slightly mad as that may sound, similar events have been witnessed elsewhere, usually connected with subterranean volcanic activity, and it would explain why relatively little meteoric material has been found at the Tunguska site. In 2020, a Russian research team came up with yet another hypothesis. Based on the results of hundreds of computer simulations, they concluded that Tunguska was the result of a so-called Earth grazer, a kind of meteorite that enters Earth's atmosphere at a shallow enough angle that it leaves again without impacting the surface. Earth grazers can still generate destructive shockwaves if they get close enough to the ground, and like the giant fart theory, this one explains the relative lack of extraterrestrial material recovered from the site. Whatever the cause, it's worth remembering just how close humanity came to what could have been the worst natural disaster in human history. The Tunguska blast was big enough to utterly destroy any city on Earth, killing hundreds of thousands of people in the process. And next time, we might not be so lucky. Oh, and there will be a next time. It's just a matter of when and where. There are tens of millions of asteroids bouncing around our solar system, and we only have good data on a tiny fraction of them. Our ability to detect and monitor them has increased exponentially over the last few decades, but as of today, we've only ever tracked 7 asteroids before they impacted Earth. Considering around 20 are thought to hit the surface every single day, that's a bit of a worrying stat. We're the planetary equivalent of a drunk boxer cowering on the ropes as unseen punches rain down on us from all sides. All we can do is pray that the knockout blow never lands. We have near misses all the time too. In early 2023, a city-killing asteroid about 90 meters across whizzed by the Earth well inside the Moon's orbit. We didn't even know it existed until about a month before. Had it been on course for London, New York, Tokyo? Well, we'd all have been f***ed. Okay, before you go out and invest your life savings in a bunker, it's time for the good news. It's true that we only have solid data on a tiny fraction of all asteroids in the solar system, but that tiny fraction includes almost all the really big ones. There's pretty much zero chance of an extinction event asteroid sneaking up and doing us like the last one did the dinosaurs. The city killers, though, are a bit more worrying. According to the European Space Agency, we spotted significantly less than 1% of those, but asteroids of that size only impact the Earth on average about once every 1,000 years or so. And even if one does happen to be heading our way, chances are good that it won't be such a big deal. Over 50% of the global population lives in cities, but those cities only cover about 2% of the total land area of the planet. And that isn't even accounting for the 2/3 of Earth that's covered in water. A direct hit from a large asteroid one-shotting a big city, whilst not impossible, would be monumentally unlucky. In 2016, the United Nations announced that Asteroid Day would be celebrated around the world to raise awareness of the possibility that we might all get brutally murdered by rocks from space at any given moment. Fittingly, Asteroid Day is celebrated every year on the 30th of June, a nod to the Tunguska event, and a small reminder of what happened the last time the universe got bored and unleashed its ruinous fury on planet Earth. Thanks for watching.